All right, welcome to lesson 17 of 28, H Radio 123, in specific, the part timers. As you know, my name's Chris, and we are going to continue looking at content creation. For part three of 14, Cullinan and Nash's 2019 Next Level Radio book, textbook that you are currently using, chapter 4, page 115 to 120. So, in the next two lessons, so this week, 17 and 18, we're going to look at how to build a good, like a well bodied content piece. It is obviously something that is also in your assignment. I don't like obviously pushing assignment agendas because you should want to actually know how to do this in like just on in its own obviously context, right? And know want to know what you need to do to become a better radio practitioner or radio professional, right? So again, we're going to be looking at a couple of videos, as you know, I've done over the past couple of weeks to fill in some really great understanding, different perspectives from three specific videos that I've actually picked out for this particular lesson. And then we're going to chat in between, obviously, about the content for this particular lesson, but also what I want to do, I'm going to do is actually show you what I've been working with on my third years. Um, Two particular content pieces that we've worked on so far. We're doing a like kind of long, like full-bodied exercise throughout the semester with them, so you can get a really clear understanding of how a good content piece actually looks like from beginning to end. Right. Okay, so just to chat a little bit about link formatics. So, what is a link? A link is the spoken time between when the microphone is actually switched on. So between songs, obviously, and elements, different elements that are not on air. I mean, you're not speaking, right? Switched on to when it is actually switched off, right? We want to start with a really basic understanding because, again, you haven't done radio before. This is your first year. So really just to get a clear understanding. And again, whenever you do look through we go through these elements and all of this theory, like try to think of what is happening now when you do listen to radio with a little bit more of a professional perspective, right? Because you're sitting on the other side now, you're learning about the format, you're learning about the medium as well. So now you can actually tell, start labeling things, start understanding constructs, etc. Right? So also it's sort of called a voice break or a talk segment, right? The link, right? But this is what we go on in terms of jargon when we talk shop, right? When we talk shop. A link in a podcast uninterrupted by advertising or music could make up an entire podcast, right? Normally we don't include music again unless it's a streaming show like a 3 hour radio show that is streamed online. But like an independent in terms of the authenticity of what a obviously what we define as a podcast. Normally no music is in there, and it's just actually one big whole 30, 40, 50 minute link, right? In talk radio, it can be a 10-minute talk segment between advertising, right? Or in music radio, it could be down to even a 30-second talk break between songs. We could do like a nice little admin link there, some housekeeping, some teasing, whatever it may be, right? Okay, let's look at some more link formatics, and then we're going to go to our first video. So the most critical part of any link is to first define the function of the link. So what is it all about? What do you want to do at the end of the day? And when I build content, and let's say I do it in terms of this. So let's say when I'm teaching the second and third years, and we're breaking it down very specifically, it's better to actually know what you're working towards. In other words, like what's the point of the link, right? So is it to do a call out, so a call to action? So people are going to phone in, or they're going to send text, or they're going to do something, a call to action, right? Is it going to be around, like, for example, what they're planning to do? Over the winter break, like as students, where they're going to go and maybe do the experiential learning, something basic like that. Or it could be, I don't know, giving, let's say, commentary on, celebrity, well-being. Like, let's say if we look at, what is that princess called? Was it Kate? Was it Kate that went missing for a bit? Right. Okay. So we can actually use that in springboarding to, let's say, your own personal, like you're growing as public figures. Ideally, that's what you want to do, right? And you could look at, let's say, some mental benchmarks, right? That you need to tick off. That sounds a little bit better than my original idea, right? So we want to know what is the point of that particular link, and then we can work around that. In other words, know how to build a hook, know how to build, let's say, so the dress up and the crumbs or whatever it is around that to have a very direct and very clear and conscientious and purposeful line of direct like line of action as we are moving through that link. We know exactly where we're going to. What we are saying is also purposeful, right? It makes sense and it's not waffling, right? So we're not talking around certain things. We're not just taking a while to get to a point, etc. Right? So that's very important, right? So if a link is of no value, listeners will quickly, without much thought, move on to another piece of content. In other words, another radio station, or another, let's say, maybe obviously social media, anything else where they can go and indulge in something that actually is interesting to them or relevant to them, informative to them, educational or entertaining, right? So they do this by either switching manually to another piece or mentally zoning out of the conversation. Either or are really not good alternatives, and they are not good indicators of you being a good radio presenter, right? So a link therefore has to be emotive. It's got to like spark a little bit of emotion. You don't have to get overly emotional, but we have various emotions as people, and we want to like touch base or like just touch in with connect with those particular emotions, that a person has about certain things in their life, about their mindsets, about their opinions, and their, let's say, experiences. For example, we want to solve the needs of the audience, even though they might not even know that they might need this information. They'll need it. They'll see it as something that they do need in their life because it was interesting and it was captivating at the end of the day, right? They have to compete, sorry, for attention with every platform that provides valuable content. That's us. We got to compete for that, right? And there's a lot of platforms. There's a lot of content that's out there, and there's also great content. I say so. So I'll make that statement on purpose because that's true, right? There's a lot of great content that is out there, but there's a lot of terrible. There's even more terrible content, right? It doesn't matter. The thing is that we want to keep them on our radio show if they've chosen to actually listen to it. So this is why a link should be broken up into two categories, and that is a link either should offer a promise or a performance. So a teaser, a promise, what's going to happen, right? And we come back with a performance. So we go and fulfill that promise. We stay true to that promise that we have offered that particular listener. So at that point, I'm going to just stop the share over there. We're going to go to our first video, share the sound here. Where did I do that? It says me. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, here we go. My PC is, as usual, struggling. Just give it a second. And it's going to be a very cool video. So it's going to just skip the ads just in a moment. And it should show now ready to show content ideas from this guy. I've grown to actually like quite a lot. He makes a lot of sense. Come on.
Are you in the enviable position of having your own radio show? Perhaps you're a broadcaster, you're a radio presenter, you're a podcaster, but it's easy enough to just put that fader up and say the same things again and again. That was this song, and now we've got this song coming up. But that's boring, right? We want to talk about more interesting things as broadcasters than just that. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you 5 solid themes that you can implement into your links or to your show content to make it really interesting, and also some great cheats of how you kind of, without feeling hugely creative, steal some other people's ideas. So, if that sounds good, let's get stuck in. My name's James Mulvaney. I'm founder of radio.co, podcast.co and matchmaker.fm, all doing really interesting things in the broadcasting and audio spaces, so go and check them out if you'd like to. Also, I'm always making videos like this one for broadcasters and podcasters. To turn on your notifications, bing, hit that subscribe button for updates and all that good stuff. You know the drill. So our first topic for discussion is actually something that's been around for ages, and something you probably think doesn't sound very interesting, but actually can be, is the news. Now, everyone wants to listen to the news because it is just that, it's news. It means you're never going to be short on supply of information and things to talk about because there's new news every single day. That's why it's called the news, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be boring. And I'm not saying you need to turn into a news reporter to be able to discuss what is going on right now. It could be celebrity news, it can be entertainment news, it could be news about what's happening in your local area, or it could even be satire news. But ultimately, think about the news as something that's an infinite and readily and really fresh source of information, of areas of topic of discussion that you might want to go into as a presenter. And ultimately, it is your job as a broadcaster to inform, educate and delight. And the inform part really is covered off by the news. So there's no harm in discussing the news. Bear in mind, if you're broadcasting on a regulated radio station, you might need to comply with certain rules and regulations. For example, if you're on terrestrial radio, FM, DAB, etc., yes, you can't talk about everything you want to talk about. However, if you're broadcasting online, the sky's really the limit. There's nothing you can and can't talk about. No one's going to slap your wrist if you say something about politics, for example. However, news is always a good thing to start off with. So here are some ideas of things that you can talk about to make your show more interesting when it comes to the news. Standard thing, today's top headline. It's always going to get listeners' attention. People always want to know what today's top headlines are, whether they're local, national, international, etc. How about good, positive or heartwarming news from today? We all know that the news is kind of filled with a lot of doom and gloom these days, but if you can bring some positivity to the airwaves, it's a good thing, and it will help get listeners on your side and kind of cheer up their day a little bit. Weirdest headlines of the month. Now that kind of sounds a bit strange, and again you can kind of leverage satire news sites, I think, sometimes, because if you look at websites like The Onion or the Daily Mash, there's some really funny stuff on there, which is obviously fake, so you need to kind of declare that and make that obvious. But sometimes going along that kind of comedy route can be quite fun. News can even just be reporting on what's happening in the local area. So it could be best things to do this weekend in your local town or city, stuff to do that evening, etc. You get the general idea. Is there any seasonal events happening? News can be top 5, so it could be like top 5 crazy celebrity headlines this week. Or it could even be deals or offers or vouchers for local restaurants or cinemas or theatres. Talk about what offers are available, what people can actually go out and take action on. If there's a new business just opened, why not give them a shout out? You see what I mean? It's just reporting on what's going on right now, which is relevant to your audience. Obviously, if you're on, like a dance music radio station which broadcasts all over the world, you probably won't be talking about what's going on right here in Manchester, for example. However, you might be reporting what's happening on the global stage in terms of DJs. It's about tailoring the news to your audience and making sure that it's captivating. You keep it entertaining, keep it light, make it interesting, and also try and make it a bit more positive. Next up, I wanted to talk about music. Now, pretty much every radio station plays music, unless perhaps you're on talk radio. We know that, right? But so many radio presenters, so many radio hosts don't really bother talking about the music they're playing. Sure, like I said earlier, you might get that was this song, and this is that song. But they never really share their opinions on the song. So it's never like, I really like that because of XYZ. So think about what your listeners are actually tuning in for. Yes, they're tuning in to listen to music, but they're not just tuning in to listen to music. They're also tuning in to listen to you, which is really crucial. So think about how you, the host, the personality, can link in with that music, and how can you tell stories with that music. Also think about creating different themes based on the music you're playing. Like if you look at Spotify, they are absolutely brilliant at this. Head to Spotify. I'm sure most of the other streaming platforms have this as well. You go into browse, you don't just find playlists based on genre now. You'll find playlists based on decades and genres on that decade. So you might have like easy listening 00s pop, okay? Or noughties pop rather. You might have like heavy rock from the 90s. But they've gone beyond this. So they'll have like music for working out, music for in the car, music for home, music for work. They'll have genres, they'll have subgenres. So they have this real kind of way of describing and kind of combining music into different themes. So if you're going to apply this to your radio station and it's the middle of summer, you might have like, these are my top 10 barbecue bangers, sizzling barbecue bangers, or you might have like, these are my top 5 songs to cure the winter blues, or you might have my top 5 alternative Christmas songs. But you as the personality or the presenter have got that choice. You can actually guide people along a pathway and kind of emote a feeling or create a sort of a response or an emotion based on what you're trying to do. It doesn't just have to be playing songs at random and just introing and outroing them. You know, there's so much more you can talk about with music. Also, I think music can be incredibly nostalgic. So a couple of great features that I always think just seem to go down really well with listeners is things like golden hours, platinum hours. So when you play songs, you know, from a specific decade, or you might say like rewind the chart. So I used to do a show called Chart Rewind, and basically we'd pick a year between like, I think it was 2000 and 2010, so it wasn't rewinding it that far, but it was for a fairly young audience, and you'd pick a month and a year and you'd kind of play songs which were in the top 10 for that month and a year. You know, if you're DJing to an older audience, you might say go back to the sort of 70s or 60s and play, you know, music that was on the chart, say in October in 1978 or whatever it might be. You know, again, you can filter down based on genre. It doesn't have to necessarily just be the top 10, but that's a great way of really kind of, I suppose, awakening that nostalgia that we all have with music. And it's a really exciting way of presenting music that isn't just, that was this song and that was this song. You know, taking people down that timeline is always good fun, I think. So next up is TV and films. TV and films is something that we're all passionate about. Pretty much everyone watches the TV these days. Everyone watches movies and everyone uses the streaming websites. And everyone talks about them. You constantly, you know, if you're down a bar or in a restaurant with your friends or down the pub, what are you talking about? The latest Netflix documentary, or you're talking about a box set that you've binge watched. So you can easily take this content and translate it into on-air content, and it's really simple to do. Think about maybe talking about a top 10 Netflix series to binge watch right now, or it could be best Christmas films of all time if you want to do something seasonal. It could be, you know, here is our favourite guilty pleasure chick flicks and rom-coms. Think about this, it's easy content to create. What is the scariest movie ever? You can get listeners engaged with this, you can encourage communication, you can encourage that inward discussion from your listeners, which is crucial, I think, to radio. And of course, it's something you can get really, really passionate about. But it doesn't have to necessarily be limited to what's going on in the movies. As I mentioned, like what was on last night's TV, what was on Netflix at the moment, what's on YouTube even. You know, there's certain videos that you think are really worth watching online. There is literally an infinite amount of content here. And if you go on websites like IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and there's various Netflix websites where you can literally go in and steal their ideas, like ethically take their ideas of content. And so like, for example, Rotten Tomatoes, they might have like a top 25 list of slasher films, or they might have, you know, Netflix series that everyone watches. They might even want to go down the retro route, like I mentioned with music. You know, you could even talk about stuff that's been and gone. So for example, like recently I've just rewatched loads of Friends episodes. Or it might be that, you know, you remembering a movie from you know, a film star who's just passed away. So for example, it could be that Sean Connery's just passed away. What were the best Bond films that Sean Connery won? Who was the best Bond of all time? There's so many different things that you can talk about relating to film and TV on the radio, and create really, really immersive content for your listeners. Okay, number 4 is the internet and social media. Now, the internet and social media is one of these things that we didn't have the luxury of as radio presenters, sort of even 15 years ago. It really hadn't taken off to a level where you can really detect what's going on in real time right now. But it is so important that you're connected to this as a radio host. And of course, there's going to be, just like the other things I mentioned, almost an infinite amount of topics and discussion material that you can easily access. You know, just go on sites like Reddit, go on sites like BuzzFeed. Even using Twitter and looking at what is currently trending can be a fantastic source of discussion. And actually you can use people's comments and people's engagement and people's discussion that's going on online to really evoke that discussion and evoke those talking points with your listeners and your audience as a radio host. You know, you could always be talking about what is going on social media right now. So what videos are doing the rounds? There's always going to be like one of the videos that's being shared around on Snapchat or Instagram, or, you know, social media platforms. You know the sorts of videos I'm talking about, the sort of stuff that gets shared around all of your friends. Well, why not share that with your listener as well? And sometimes you can even play the video. Obviously you need to check for rights and things, but you know, sometimes you can get away with playing clips of videos on air And certain videos will work better than others because some videos are really about what's going on. You need to be visually watching it, in which case your presenter is to describe it and perhaps even react to it. But some videos are heavily reliant on audio, let's be honest, so they can make great translations directly from the screen online to the airwaves. Okay, so my final topic of conversation for your show really is sports. Now, everyone's huge sports fans, right? And it's so easy to talk about sports, talking about what sports are just happening. And again, it's one of these things, it's a bit like the news. There's always going to be conversation around the topic of sports. Sometimes it's controversial, sometimes it's just a case of here are the results, sometimes it's a case of what has this guy said or what has this person done. But there's always going to be things to talk about in terms of sports. Can you believe that last result? I thought they were going to do much better than they did, or they completely thrashed them. Whatever it might be, there's always topics to talk about there. One of the things I've noticed about radio, it used to be quite common that the news would be read and then would have a dedicated person to read the sport. That's very seldom, few and far between now. I don't see that happening often at all. So as a radio presenter, that can potentially open up doors, and it's really easy to report on sports because all you've got to do is fire up the internet, go to your favourite sports sites, and again find out stuff that might be relevant to your audience. For example, there's no point of talking to an American audience about cricket. Likewise, there's not much point of talking to a UK audience about American football or baseball. But obviously there's going to be common ground between those two audiences. So again, it's finding a sort of sports that's relevant for your audience and just reporting on it. Or if you don't want to go down the reporting scores thing, talk about gossip that's happening in the industry. So there we have it. 5 interesting topics that can really breathe some energy and breathe some life into any radio show. Whether or not you go into detail about talking to one of them or just kind of sprinkle them all evenly throughout your links. If you can master talking about these 5 topics, and if you can master really researching and finding information to talk about on these 5 topics, I guarantee you're never ever going to be short of content, and you're never going to be sending listeners away without feeling like they've really got some kind of value or entertainment or education from your show. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe for more. See you soon.
Right. So very cool. Good piece there. So I'm just going to stop that share. We'll come back. There's while I'm actually here, these are the other 2 videos that I actually wanted to play. So I'm just going to line that up for a moment. Just give me a second. Say that over there, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. Let us go back to the lesson, and then we can come back to, again, as I said, the videos. All right, so let's look at, so we left off with the promise and then obviously the performance, right? So what is a promise? A promise is called a tease or throw forward. When you listen to the radio and you'll hear a presenter go on air and entice you with what's going to happen in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes of the show, they're going to not just tell you, oh, we're going to just be chatting to this particular person, or we're going to play you this song, or we're going to do a call out based on this, whatever it may be. It's got to be kind of like repurposed in a way that is, again, as I say, enticing, right? And make sure that you're, I mean, I always say like the word salivating is a little bit extreme, but they've got to be like thirsting for a little bit more, right? And so if you really want to kind of understand, like think of if you are like me, and I think most people as well, we'd obviously like to go watch movies, right? So when you get a good trailer, like a good official trailer that you see, then you're like, oh man, this is constructed so well, man. I can't wait for this movie to come out. They basically teased that movie well enough for you to go and spend like that, whatever it is. Like right now, I think it's like $200 to go watch a movie, and a little bit more if you want to go on IMAX, right? So as I said, so try to think of it in that kind of context to kind of get a little bit of relatable positioning in terms of where you understand what a promise might be. A promise, it promises the listener that what they're about to listen to is going to be of value to them, and they should stay tuned in for this content, right? The promise finds the emotive hook in the link or piece of content that's coming up, or finds information about a song that is coming up and sells that piece to the audience, as I just kind of mentioned there before, right? So promises should be planned similar to any other creative, entertaining link as your show is properly and, like I say, very what's the word I'm looking? I won't say coherently. That's not the right word, but completely planned. Right. All right. Then you can imagine we come back now. We come back with this link that's going to obviously fulfill the promise. Right. You now have the listener's attention and have to make the opportunity worth the listener's while because you've said to them, stay tuned. They've said, cool, let me stay tuned as you have promised me something great. So now you have to actually then deliver on what you have promised. What makes a performance worthwhile is that it is emotive. So you've got to use the right language to connect with them right there in their, like I say, in their hearts. You understand? Make them feel something, make them react to something, make them, want to whatever it is, change their mind, whatever think differently. I don't know. Right? There's many different ways that we can cause someone to react emotively. Right? In other words, it makes the listener feel something and engage them on an emotional level. Good radio stations utilize qualitative research to help them make informed decisions about what makes the listener tick and will get them to feel right. So, what is it that they currently care about? Like, what are their family dynamics? Like, what are they worried about? Or what are their career goals? Or like how do they feel about rising inflation, whatever it may be, right? Because I see now we're going to get that's crazy. Like we're getting 5.3 percent inflation coming now. It's again. I don't even want to. I have nothing to say about like our government anyway. A good performance piece of content is one that can be both relevant and obviously relatable at the end of the day. Let's continue with the performance. Different emotions carry different weighting and fall into specific order of importance. So, presenters should first try to make the listeners feel good, right? So they enjoy the experience. I mean, even if, again, as I say, you're listening to music, you're obviously going to listen to music that you like. You understand? Like, that's why you choose music and you won't listen to music you don't like. So, when you're listening to a radio station, like you're going to enjoy the experience, and it's going to make you, like I say, a little bit like obviously like in a better mood, right? And we can get people in a better mood in many different ways. So next, you should also try to maybe surprise or create a moment of emotional connection in terms of like, well, I mean. There might be some sympathy or empathy in terms of like there might be a devastating situation, a sad story, some trauma, whatever it is you want to share again, because people are complex beings, right? At other times, evoking emotions or of disgust or fear would offer a fuller range of emotional repertoire, right? And a presenter should never, however, anger listeners, rather allow other callers or characters to evoke those negative emotions. So, a good example, again, you need to be, I always say this, again, I've said it before, a conduit for what is happening on your show. So everything must come in and out, but you mustn't be this elaborator of a particular stance where people can make a snap judgment on you and never look back, right? So if we want to tell some, like for example, let's say you're into, I always think of interviewing someone that rapes people, like rapes women, men, children, whatever it may be, right? Like we know there's nothing to like there's nothing that we want to like celebrate within this particular human being. Let's say we have this person on the show, and like we will allow them, for example, the first person, let's say the guest, they will dig their own hole, right? But definitely we'll open up if we have to open up to callers and we open up to like response. What are they going to say? They're going to say what's on their mind. Do you understand? And it's intentionally we do manipulative, medium, just like any other medium, I suppose, right? And we will allow them to say what we actually can't and shouldn't as well, because we need to remain objective, right? And someone that can obviously be approached, someone that understands different angles, different perspectives, different whatever it is, right? Points of view, etc. Right? But we can use, like I say, what is around us to basically say what we want to say without having to say it. Right. When it comes to certain emotional responses, control of the situation is essential. So when we do prep, we also need to be in the right. Like we put out the mindset is the massive it plays a massive role, obviously, right? So I'm going to have control where I know where I am going. I've got to have a control, like control in terms of, let's say I'm interviewing someone or going to call out for people to say something, whatever it is. I need to like prepare myself for what possibly could happen as well, right? Control, obviously, in terms of the literal sense, in terms of the studio, whatever it is, knowing how to work with the equipment, I get that as well. But you need to understand that you might have a variance of emotional responses, obviously, and you need to like keep your ground, like keep your temperament all together, right? Even when someone is saying, hey, you're interviewing someone with a very sad story, like you cannot. It's uncomfortable when you start saying, "I'm sorry to hear that," because you are sorry to hear that, but you have to move on. Like you have to move on. Like people are going to be obviously empathizing with a particular person's trauma, whatever it is, difficulty, and do not start getting into that whole thing where you're basically kind of like metaphorically rubbing obviously their back for comfort or whatever it may be. It'll be difficult for you to is the word what's the word I'm looking for? Transition. Yeah, transition from even that particular moment in that link to, let's say, like you want to now ask a different question or make a different point, and now you've already made the place uncomfortable, right? Anyway, okay. So, conversations. Radio is a personal medium in which the presenter and the listener are involved in the illusion of a one on one conversation. So, when we say the illusion, it's because you can't see them. Do you understand? And also, they're not like all these different listeners listening with their own, like I say, in their own capacity, are connecting to you one on one, right? So, the way that you address them again is in the singular you. How are you doing? Like, tell me about your day. What do you like to eat at night when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning? What is your first thought every single Monday when you wake up or when you reach a Friday or whatever, a Friday evening? Where are you going and who are you spending it with? You want to look at that particular person, connect directly your entire construct of how you lay out your wording and your sentencing is changed completely because you can visualize that one person and talking to them directly. We achieve this by never referring to the listeners as a collective, right? As a plural. So, not you guys, all you out there, all ladies and gentlemen, or you mustn't do that. Like, because again, once again, it'll change completely the construct of how you then start saying and addressing people. And it's just not the way that we do things. Singular, direct, connect. I've already explained as to why. Okay. So, one of the implications of this illusion is that a good presenter will see and maintain links as conversations, that person to person, dialogue that you're having. Again, very personal, very connective. The conversational style of a radio presenting separates the great radio presenters from the mediocre presenters that don't get it. Like you've got to listen to yourself when you're on air and you're saying things that just don't seem right. You're saying the you guys thing and you're addressing and you're using cliches and whatever it is. Like you got to be obviously very aware of what it is that you sound like and what's coming out of your mouth, man. At the end of the day, man, again, that would be a mediocre presenter for me. And for anyone. It's not a personal preference. That's bothering me. Just, come on, man. Send you back. Anyway, right. Okay. So that's those that can make their listeners feel like they are talking directly to them and not at them are usually the presenters that have the most success with the medium. And we can listen to so many people, and you know exactly, like it's very easy to say, oh, the presenter's good, the presenter's bad. You understand? And when you look at all the ones that you do think are good, they're probably going to have, they're going to 10 to 0 have um, uh, probability. They'll have all these particular characteristics, right? Okay. All right. So structuring a link, and we go from here, and we'll go to a video. You'll have to use your imagination to see it properly, but the diagram below represents a man wearing a sombrero, right over there, right, and riding a bicycle. It's known as the Mexican on the bicycle and represents the formation of a link. I just want to zoom in a little bit. You'll see it in the textbooks at figure 4.2, link formation, right? So have a look. Very, very easy. Very simple, because I want to simplify it in the beginning so that you can understand, right? So here's your obligation. There's the thought. There's a little hat there, right? Okay, bicycle. On the bicycle. Here's the bicycle. There's the front and the back tire, or the wheels, right? Obligation fulfilled, right? And that will be the link. Okay, obligation, thought, obligation fulfilled. Keep that in the back of your heads um, as we move to another video. Okay, let me just go here. What's here? And get on the air from anywhere.
So when you're working on a radio program day to day, you become really, really good at making content from the world around you, forming it, sourcing it, everything that matters to your listener. It becomes a day-to-day thing. The good news is that this is a process that you can learn. And so that's what I want to do in this module for you right now. It's a highly creative process, so that's going to make it really good fun. And the aim is to make your content as unique and as original as you possibly can. It doesn't matter where you get it from. You need to draw on your own feelings to make sure that you're putting something completely brand new to your listener. Now, in order to make your content engaging for your listeners, you need to choose subjects that they relate to. And to do this, I use the acronym RICE. There are various versions of this. This is my version. And I want you to really think about it when you're looking for content. So first of all, is the content relevant? That's R. Is it topical, timely, right now? Bring your content or source your content into the zeitgeist. Is this the conversation that's happening right now for your listener? Make it informative. I. Choose things you know your listener is going to care about. So your list of 5 things from earlier, the 5 things you want to be true about your listener, should help you with this. But if you're broadcasting a specialist show or a specialist format, like folk music or boxing, make sure you have information that your listener can't get anywhere else, or if they can get it somewhere else, you've got your twist on it. Give them social ammunition. That means that they can go to their friends and use that information to make connections. The C in RICE is connect. Make it human. Look at relationships, emotions, personal experience. They're all key to making your content work. And look at the words that you would use to express the information that you're giving them. And E, make it entertaining. This is about your treatment, your angle, the way you tell the story, the emotions you pull into your performance. So make sure it's RICE, relevant, informative, connect, entertaining. Get on the air from anywhere.
it feels like a sin to maybe have cut off that jingle. I just let it play. Nice, very simple. Nice. I love this. I'm really loving this whole rice concept as well. Kind of bookmark that as well. I'll just always show you how to find like the obviously I'll zoom out, as you can see, go out from full screen so you can actually go have a look at these links for yourself, and kind of bookmark them as well. Right, follow the channel. Very cool. You okay? I'm not in the right. I'm not gonna. Might as well just subscribe. Why not? While we're at it, I'm saying so you can also understand how to go and create just follow the right people, right? Okay, the last one is going to be this video here, but we are going to first just close up the lesson. And as I said, what I'm going to do in the next lesson is I'm going to, obviously we're going to continue with content, but in terms of the construct of the hook, the comes to dress up, the payoff, and the blackout, right? Then I'm going to show you, we're going to play some examples, And we are also going to look at the ones that we have come up with, the 30th, and a good breakdown so you can understand also how to construct your own moving forward. So with formatics, so let's start by turning to page 58 in your textbook and reading formatting tips from consultant Tony Kramer. Right. So Tony Kramer says a couple of formatics like pull the listener into the radio with you, right? So we have discussed and understand, create an immersive experience for them, right? Engaging, interactive, and again, also kind of that kind of their theater of the mind, that imagination of really giving them a reason to be captivated once again, that like caught up in it. Sell the benefit of what it is that you are saying. So, what is the purpose to their life, and in their, like I say, current day, or where they are currently in different phases of their journeys, like I say, that they are taking. Sell the benefit. If it's a competition, like tell them why they need to enter. If it's a song they need to listen, tell them why they need to, why it's so good, or why it's so special, or whatever it is. What is the benefit to that particular listener? If it's an interview, tell them why they're going to need to listen to this particular person, right? Use real language, so don't go over, like I say, overboard and too Englishy, or again, well, I'm using English. Every single language has a lot of kind of that upper level, very advanced kind of obviously diction that you can use there, but use real language. Just speak directly to them, and within your own context. So if you are someone that has a massive diction, like a massive vocabulary, like it's cool. Like you can use. There's a lot of very basic and I say Achman, commonplace words, right, that you can use, because that's a lot of diction that you can choose from, right? Connect with that listener. Obviously, the rule of one is one concept, right, for one link, right? Hit the target within the target market, or hit the target, because I'm going to interpret this the way that I want to, and that's obviously a little bit broader for you as well. I'll hit that and make sure that you hit the target as well of what it is that you have promised. For example, like you wanted to make them feel this way, you wanted them to know about this, you wanted to make this particular statement, whatever it is. Promote ahead, so tease definitely, and don't tell the listener what to think ever, ever. Don't tell them that they have to like the song, or they're going to like this is an artist they must follow, or whatever it is. Like your opinion matters, but it doesn't matter much. Okay, sell the dream first before you give the information. So again, almost like that promise. Have a roadmap, right? So again, prep, like know exactly where you are going. Also know how to edit phone calls. So, for example, let's say live phone calls. We want to like make sure that we speak to the caller off air, right? Make sure that we find the best part of what they're gonna add to that particular segment of the show, and then make sure that we go on air. We start at the interesting parts, like of what it is that they're going to contribute to that show. So we need to obviously again listen off air. Formatics for callers, right? Again, just knowing how to take a caller, what not to ask them. So don't ask every single caller, "How are you?" Tell me like how your day has been, unless it's relevant to maybe a question, like you're talking about like a terrible weather or terrible circumstances that are happening in that particular day. Reset the stage. So always make sure that you can find your say your core of what it is that you are currently talking about. You can recap as well, or you can move to a new segment, and like of a clean, like I say, on a clean slate. Break the habit of taking a break, right? Right. So this whole wording of we're going to take a break, don't say that. And also even in terms of your own like your psychological approach to your show as well. I'm my own interpretation of this. Don't you have to be actively cognizant of your show at all times. But also, like I say, please don't tell them you're going to take a break, because they'll take a break with you and they'll go away. So don't panic if you need a moment. Rather, take that moment, play some music, play some other elements, and rather go collect yourself. Okay. Content plus formatics equals good ratings. All right. So, guidelines for successful content and creating powerful production. One, get to the point. So, like a good storyteller, you need to have a beginning, middle, and an end. The second one is be concise. So, use that brevity, right? Your word economy as well, when you are telling someone what is happening, right? So if you can say it in 10 words, say it in 10 words and don't say it in 20, right? Don't waste time because time is precious on radio. And again, once again, because it is a passive medium, but also it's a theater of the mind medium, you can't see anything. Like it's very easy to lose a listener's attention. Be captivating, right? Say things that matter. And again, that's all about being present, right? Time is of the essence. So the maximum time of any script production should be about 60 seconds or less. But you should have the greatest, most creative piece of production running. And after 60 seconds, your audience has tuned out, maybe even sooner. So that's not like just note again, it's not a hard and fast rule. It's as an example, just know what you can do in that time and do it, you know. Let's move to some more. So, talking pictures, again, the theater of the mind. This is a recurring theme in everything that we do in radio. Capture their attention and their imagination. So, plug into that movie playing that's in their heads, right? Again, they're going to create all the imagery. They're going to imagine what you look like. They're going to imagine what your face looks like when you're saying certain things, who you're talking to, what you're talking about, descriptive words, emotions, and again, that kind of passion that you're bringing in. Production elements as well. Use sound effects, music, movie clips, sound bites, all these things add to creating that great theater experience, right? Again, of the mind. And more than one voice, an additional voiceover or a character voice, also nice in there, straightforward, non descriptive, single drive voiceovers are the most annoying to listeners and the highest tune out factor, or one of the highest tune out factors, right? So use a hook at the beginning. So we want to hook them once again, 7 to 14 seconds to tell them why it is. Make them want to stay longer. Think of a fish, think of a hook, think of how that happens. I'm saying to you how the catch happens. Just like it sounds, you must be creative, clever, and grab a listener's attention from the beginning before they can mentally tune out and miss the rest of your content piece. Last slide here, right? And then you'll see this. I think there's an exercise, right? Yeah, that's good exercise. Well, there we go. So with the hook, right, and which is again, we just saw this now in the summative. You have to apply yourself with this. Focus the topic, engage the audience, state your opinion or position on a talkable topic, and explain your view and experience through storytelling. You're gonna say to me, Chris, what does it look like, right? I will show you in the next lesson examples of a good hook, and we'll construct a couple as well. All right. Please, this is very important. For homework, listen to 5 links of your favorite radio show and mark off for yourself, right? Is it a promise? Is it a performance? What emotion, if any, is being triggered here? So be specific about that emotion, right? How successful was this link at creating emotive, valuable radio? All right, so let's close up with that last video. Yes, let's go straight to it. All right, just let that ad play there. All right, here we go.
What is good, people? Social Media Ayaz locking in from London, UK, and today we're going to dive into how to promote a radio show. So a long time ago, I used to be on the air every single week doing a small interview segment on a SoundCloud radio show. And I would assist in the promo and run some live tweets and some content updates in the studio itself. So I'm talking from a little bit of experience, but also what I've learned in the 3 or 4 years since I was on the air every single week. And the first tip I would give you would be to start promoting early. Don't leave it until the last minute, maybe the night before or the day of, to start hyping up attendance onto the live broadcast. And better yet, give people a reason to show up on the live broadcast. If it's just to listen in, what's the urgency, right? Because they can do that in their own time. But if they have to show up to participate in challenges, to get their shout outs in, to be involved in the show, to send user generated content of tagging themselves in Instagram stories or being the first to get this little gift that you're giving the fans and you're only giving it while you're on the air, it creates a magnet for people to actually show up at the exact time of your radio broadcast. And far too many artists only put out Instagram stories to market onto their live show. What about Facebook? What about Twitter? You need to let go of the idea that the number of likes on the post equals clicks onto the stream. Because let's be real, the people who are going to go to that website name or that app aren't necessarily going to go via your Facebook post or your Twitter post. They might just subconsciously know exactly what time you're on the air. And you've always got to be thinking that people are watching your content that might not be engaging. So put those numbers out of your head for just a moment and find a way to tactfully grow the amount of attention you garner every single week onto your account. And I truly believe you should be creating content whilst you create content. And what I mean by that is that while you are on the air, you can easily have a tripod rolling in the background to capture the entire conversation. Then in post-production, you can snip out key moments, such as when the artist walked in the studio, when the next DJ before or after you walked in the studio. You could even give your phone to one of the staff members, the intern, the station manager, to create some content of you while you're on the air. And you absolutely need to leverage the station's social media. Even if you have better socials than the station, it just looks a little bit more professional to have the official station shouting you out before and after you go on the air and the best moments that happen. So I reckon as a DJ, you need to have at least one mechanic every single week to do something creative with your audience. So for example, like when I used to DJ, I used to always play one song for each of my best friends. So I knew exactly what they liked. And so I'd see one and I'd play Ante Up. I'd see another one, I'd play something by Ashanti. I'd see another one, I'd play something a bit more with a heavy drop. So when you know the customer who is showing up, you can cater the music for them. And then they feel like you're recognizing them as part of the stream and they tell everyone else, yo, so-and-so gave me a shout out. Yo, he played a song just for me. And you're creating this super experience for one person who then tells their whole community that you gave some content exclusively for them. So if I was to break this down to a weekly strategy, I would start the moment after the stream from the previous week ends. So you've just got off the station air. I would take a photo in the actual radio booth itself, and I would be packing your bag or be taking their headphones off or doing some sort of dynamic action implying a close to that week's show. I would always start with gratitude, thanking everyone for their participation in showing up for the live show. I would give some highlights of what happened in that show. So we gave away 3 copies of this new song. We gave away these goodies. We made sure we had 100 people doing this challenge. Whatever it may be that you did in that episode, highlight it for the fans so that everyone who didn't make the stream knows about it for next time. The next post I would do would be to take a snippet of that interview, of that show, and put it out as a 40-second piece of content. Just 40 seconds, nothing more. You want to have just enough curiosity and enough banter and enough fun that people want to tune in next week. You're creating this fear of missing out, the FOMO, that if you don't show up for the live, you miss out on this banter. The next post I would be doing would be saying coming up in next week's show. And I'll put that as early as possible. I wouldn't do it just on the day of the show or the day before. I'd even start 4 or 5 days early. If your show isn't weekly, if it's bi-monthly, twice a month, or even monthly, then I would make sure you start at least 1 week early on the promo to make sure people know to lock in. If you have a group or a mailing list or anything like that where people are opting in to see this content, you can put some extra content there. You can do your polls. What do you want to see in next week's episode? You can do your quizzes. Which guest have we not had yet on the channel? 1, 2, 3, and option 4 can be correct. However you decide to use that functionality. Who should we try and get next? And give them a choice of 3, or just ask for their overall recommendation. The next post after that, you see where I'm going, and we're building up the hype around this. I would then take one moment where a really great broadcast link happened. So where one song ended, you did a little talk in the middle, and you perfectly press play in the next track, just to show what a talented presenter you are. And I would put that out as a piece of feed content, you guys, not just story content. Because as we all know, so my light just died and we're going to finish the rest of this video with an iPhone torch. But basically I was saying that I'd create all my content for the week around making an unmissable experience for the live broadcast. And I would make sure that I'm never taking assumptions that people know what to expect from the show because they haven't yet tuned in. I'd give them as many snippets of the best moments of the show that I could to encourage them to get on for the next live show. And if they're missing out, they're missing out on goodies, downloads, user-generated content, you know, when they tag you in their stories and then you repost every single one of them onto your stories. You're missing out on shout-outs. So if you're meeting a new chick, if you are hanging out with your boys, if you're hanging out with anyone, you can give a shout-out on the air and it will get read out, and then you guys can have the perception and the props for getting a plug online. And throughout all of this content, I would have no fear in what the audience think. I'd only be giving value and not worrying about the numbers and the view counts and the number of likes or all of that jazz. I would be making sure that my content would be so interesting and hype, people would be saying, I can't wait to dive onto next week's show. I certainly wouldn't be spamming, trying to get desperate for those numbers. So, as always, I hope this video helps you. Apologies for the light dying on me, but that's how we move. And I want to thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. Let me know in the comments below which tip was most impactful for you, and are you going to use these tips next time you do a radio?
Awesome. So nice different angle as well. Just a little bit of a fresh angle as well. Said some cool, obviously basic stuff that you know that we have obviously repeated within class in different contexts as well. And I'm going to stop that share there. Just give it a second, and we are back here. All right. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next lesson where we are going to break down, as I said, the break construct. All right, of those content pieces for you to go and start creating for yourself. All right. Have a good one.